What's a bet you won that you immediately regretted? When I was 12, my little brother Tommy was obsessed with this stupid magic trick. He'd make a quarter disappear behind his ear and act like he was the next David Blaine. Super annoying, especially when he did it in front of my friends. Every single day after school, he'd corner me and anyone who'd listen, forcing us to watch his terrible magic show. The quarter trick, some lame card nonsense, pulling rubber bands through his fingers like it was rocket science. Kid thought he was a genius magician. One afternoon in October, I got completely fed up. Tommy was showing off again in our living room, making that same beaten up quarter vanish for what felt like the millionth time. I rolled my eyes and told him his magic was totally fake, that anyone with half a brain could do better tricks blindfolded. Tommy got this serious look on his face, the kind he usually saved for when Dad lectured us about grades. Bet you can't do real magic like me, he said, puffing out his 12-year-old chest. I bet you $20 you can't make something actually disappear forever. $20 was absolutely huge money for a 7th grader in our house. That was like 4 weeks of allowance, enough to buy every candy bar at Miller's corner store. I laughed and said deal, thinking I'd just hide something stupid in the garage and pretend it vanished into thin air. Easy money from my gullible little brother. That's when Tommy got this weird, almost sad smile. But I get to pick what disappears, he said slowly, and it has to be gone for real. No finding it later, no taking it back. I should have backed out right there. Something in his voice sounded different, more serious than usual. But my friends were watching from the couch, and $20 would buy so much candy and maybe even that new comic book I wanted. I shook his small hand and said we definitely had a deal. Tommy disappeared into our parents' bedroom for what felt like forever. 5 minutes later, he came back holding this old shoebox I'd never seen before. It was completely taped shut with yellowing Scotch tape and felt surprisingly heavy, like it had thick books or photo albums inside. Make this disappear forever, he said, handing me the mysterious box with both hands. You've got until dinner time to do your real magic trick. I took the box straight to our backyard and buried it under the massive oak tree behind our storage shed. Dug a hole almost 3 feet deep with Dad's garden shovel, dropped the box in, covered it completely with dirt and dead leaves. Perfect crime, no evidence anywhere. At dinner that night, I announced proudly that the box had vanished into thin air forever. Tommy slowly handed over 20 crumpled dollar bills with this strange, sad look on his face that I'd never seen before. I thought he was just upset about losing the bet and his allowance money. That night around midnight, I heard weird noises coming from my parents' bedroom. Crying, then whispered arguing, then more crying that sounded like Mom. I pressed my ear against the thin wall but couldn't make out any actual words. The next morning, Mom's eyes were all red and puffy like she'd been crying for hours. Dad looked like he hadn't slept at all, just staring at his coffee cup. They kept asking Tommy and me if we'd seen a small brown box anywhere, if we'd moved anything from their room recently. I played completely dumb, figuring it was just some weird coincidence. But over the next few days, their questions got more and more desperate. Mom was literally tearing apart every closet, checking under beds, going through every single cabinet in the house like a woman possessed. Finally, after a week of watching our parents fall apart, Tommy cracked under the pressure. He told them everything about our stupid bet, how I'd made their mysterious box disappear with my amazing magic skills. The look of pure horror on my parents' faces still haunts me today. Dad grabbed me by both shoulders, his hands actually shaking. Where is it? Where exactly did you put the box? His voice was trembling, which absolutely terrified me because Dad never got upset about anything ever. I led them both to the backyard and dug up the now soggy, falling apart cardboard box. Inside were dozens of old photographs, letters tied with faded ribbon, and a small silver jewelry box I'd never seen. Mom immediately started crying again when she saw the contents spread out on our kitchen table. The photos were all of their first baby, my older sister Emma, who died when she was only 3 months old. This was years before Tommy and I were even born. The letters were from the hospital, the funeral home, condolence cards from family members. The jewelry box held Emma's tiny hospital bracelet and a small silver locket with her picture inside. This was absolutely all we had left of her, Mom whispered, holding the water-damaged photos with shaking hands. We kept it hidden because we didn't want you boys to feel like you weren't enough for us. 20 years later, I still think about that terrible bet every single day. Tommy never did magic tricks again after that awful day.